Hi. We never get a chance to talk to each other, and it's really hard to meet face to face. So I thought I would give you some face to face feedback via not face to face technically, but digitally. Um, so I'm on your rubric here, and there are a lot of really great points that you want to cover when it comes to something as massive as a science fair project. But at first glances, sorry, I've got something in my teeth. At first glances, there's a lot going on here, and I'm just wondering if some of this stuff could be either condensed or maybe something could be weighted. So here's what I mean by that. Like, you have neat and professional, you have spelling and grammar, you have works cited. Um, while those things are important in your science fair presentation, I would imagine in your case, you're probably more concerned about um, like the why it works and what was the actual science behind this, the control, the experimental, the procedures. Um, I'm wondering if I had a numerical grade book, if those would be grades I would take prior to actual science fair night, and then have that be a part of a maybe a cluster of points that I would put in my grade book, and then maybe assess like the presentation side of it in another cluster of of that. So like let's say for example, if you really wanted to look at the procedures and the scientific side of things, I'm assuming I may be wrong. You may want to make that say out of like 50 points or something, and then you would check that before science fair night. Um, but like let's say the works cited and the grammar and all those kinds of things, maybe that's only worth 20 points. So what they may not have in grammar and presentation doesn't weigh down the fact that they actually did follow through on the science end of, which is kind of where your standards and your thinking ultimately weigh importance. That's my first thoughts. The other thing that I wanted to show you is I adapted this really cool tool this year. It was called the single point rubric. So I'm going to switch screens here. Um, so it basically shows the criteria in the center here. These are the things that you would want to really focus in on as part of like this, like say the guidelines of the presentation or of the science fair project in and of itself. But then, areas that need work and then advanced. So I'm not sure if you have people who are going to be giving feedback or something along those lines, if kids are going to be actually giving presentations. With Genius Hour going on, I was a little fuzzy on how science fair works. So maybe this is something that we do talk face to face. I'm just trying to give some brainstorming ideas, but just the idea that, maybe by the time that they sit and present their science, it's not necessarily numerical, but they're really looking at feedback, because hopefully at this point, this is the best that they could potentially put out there in front. And you've already done a lot of the numerical grading. Maybe this feedback that could be constructed by those who are giving feedback to kids can then be translated into like a student self-assessment or something of their work and their procedures and their scientific thinking and methods and all those kinds of things, and some goal setting. And then that could be kind of a culminating thing for your grade book. But you've taken these grades all along the way and kind of approved them along the way. They go through the final science fair presentation where they might get more written feedback or spoken feedback, maybe depending on the assessors, and then they do some sort of self-assessment with you, kind of talking about their final performance or whatever. That's kind of how I do it with Genius Hour. I take small grades. Well, if when I did take grades, I don't take grades anymore, but I do lots and lots of check-ins so that you have lots of time to revise and know that by the time Genius Hour night hits, like that's the best that they could potentially perform, and like I know that what they're putting up is the best that they can do. And then I let those who come in from the outside assess, do something that's really similar to this. This is more of my writing that I give to kids, this feedback. But I may have a checklist or something that I highlight or something with somebody who comes in that is assessing just for presentation and overall quality of the work. So to me, like seeing what feedback is on here versus just points and numbers may give you some food for thought. Definitely work smarter, not harder. If there's something that you could potentially create, like a checklist or guidelines or something that works to your advantage. Those are just some ideas. We can definitely get together and brainstorm what that might look like. If you like something like this, I stole this from the Cult of Pedagogy that's online. I'll be happy to give you any resources I have that look like this. I can also share with you like my Genius Hour things that I do, which is more written feedback than it is point feedback necessarily. So these are my initial thoughts. If, like I said, you want to get together and talk about it, I'll be more than happy to. And if I think of things along the way before you and I connect with each other, I will definitely share them with you. So good luck. Let me know how I can help. This is exciting. Thanks.